Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. It's episode 21. We're almost to the end of the season, round 20 out of 22. So we're so close to getting to the end of the year. Just a few episodes here, and the season, the inaugural season, will be done. Meantime, our design center, the upgrade to level 3, is complete. Now, the only difference this time, no new engineers, which is unfortunate, but the project capacity has been pushed from 2 to 3 at a time. So realistically, what we could do is we could divide up our engineers a little bit more and have more things happening simultaneously. Now, it'll slow each one down a little bit, but not significantly. It'll slow each project down by a matter of days, but it'll increase our output of projects by 50%. So while it won't increase the overall by 50%, since you're slowing each project down by a matter of a few days, realistically, if all projects are, say, 5 days slower, that's 15 days slower over 3 projects. But if each project takes a month and a half, slowing them down by 5 days each, you're actually getting 3 projects going at the same time. So, that increase is significant. Just like before when we went from 1 project to 2 and 6 engineers to 10, going from 5 per project instead of 6 per project did slow it down by, say 2 to 3 days, but we were doubling our output. So the increase was probably 96-97%. Now it's not a 50% increase, but it is probably like 45-46% increase. But we've got to get a 3rd project going for that to happen, which means we need some engineers. So I could either wait until one of the projects is done and then start implementing and dividing it up, or we could pull off some engineers now. Realistically, we're looking at 3, 3, and 4 engineers per project. Seems the smartest way to go. You don't want to put just 1 engineer on a project and, have at it, make it take forever. But, maybe we do. Maybe we put 1 on something like a suspension research project and just pull 1 off of one of these projects. Research, I would think. Maybe we pull 2 off there and go 3 and 2. But also, following our double DNF, our gearbox for both drivers are destroyed. So you can see we have just a tiny amount of condition remaining on Porsche's, and Albon's is completely destroyed. So we're going to have to spend $2 million on replacements, which really sucks. Hence you have got to keep some reserve cash flow, because you never know what's going to suddenly happen and require a hefty investment just to keep the car going. In the case of Porsche, with 3 races to go, I think we can just about get away with our 4 older ones. None of them are damaged to the point that they're not usable. All of them are just close to being impacted by their wear. But, looking at gearbox number 4 in particular, it looks like it's going to hang in there for a race or 2 just fine, where, I think we can just about get a race out of 1, 2, or 3. And with our next race being the Mexican Grand Prix, we're looking at a very, very high-speed track that's going to really favor low-speed corners and the overall top speed, which is not our strength. So if we're going to have a weak race weekend, I'm going to use the weaker gearbox for this one and put that back on. It's at 44%, so we are going to, take a hit here soon, but let's save the money. Meanwhile, for Albon, he's already used 1 additional gearbox. That was a brand new gearbox that got completely destroyed there. But you could see we have a very good one that could easily take 3 races still. And number 6, what's the wear level? That's 41%. It's 1% away from being, but we're at 70% here. I think we can install that, get through 3 races, or easily through 2. We'll see about the 3rd race on what we would have to do for that one, but we'll be okay. So our rear wing research project to drop from 5 to 3 engineers we had 26 days left. This is going to bump it back to 31 days. So, you know, for that, again, that's exactly 5 days longer. But we're going to have an additional project going, and that's going to be bigger. That's a bigger deal for us. We'll add one more in after the side pods project is done. So the new project will go from 2 to 3, and current design will go at 4. But I think we're going to have to switch to research at that point with only a couple races left. As, yeah, the Mexican Grand Prix is going to be done by the time the side pod project is done. So I think that'll be the last upgrade for this year. And then we'll have 3 research projects going simultaneous. So I'm going to start a front wing research project, but here was the thing about it. We'd used up all of our hours. Our next window opens in a week, which isn't that far off. But, you know, what's to gain? What's to gain by waiting a week? We could just get on with a project. It's not going to be as effective, but it saves those hours for whatever other projects we're going to do. So we're going to get a minor upgrade research going. And for this one, we're going to focus primarily on the brake cooling and the airflow sensitivity, both that and airflow front. So improving the airflow, because the downforce part for this type of upgrade anyway isn't doing much for us. So we'll try to focus on, you know, those peripheral factors. Simulator upgrade is complete, so that's going to give us additional benefit in terms of car development. So that's going to be really good for us. We're doubling our effectiveness by getting that to level 2. So that's going to be fantastic as we progress, you know, through next year's car design. Every upgrade we make is now going to have twice the impact of the previous.
Music is in the air this weekend, but it's not mariachi we'll be hearing. It's going to be the roar of the engines and the cheers of the crowd. Formula One is back in the very heart of Mexico City at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. This is an exhilarating circuit on the Formula One calendar. We'll be sure to see plenty of battles and overtaking this weekend, especially with the help of not 1, not 2, but 3 DRS zones. With the season nearly concluded, time is running out for the teams. Can anyone make a last-minute breakthrough? Can the leading drivers hold on? Only time will tell. The weekend begins here.
Moderate rain expected on Friday, but it should be dry the other 2 days of the weekend. This is going to be a really hard track for us. Looking at the fact that, you know, low speed cornering is going to be really huge. I don't know why top speed isn't, as we have our longest straightaway. I mean, you can see just the insane length of that front straight. And then you have 2 other DRS zones on top of it. Now, the DRS can help us keep up, but slow sections at turns 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. And at the end in the stadium section as well. 3 major slow sections, and there's only a couple of fast corners. 1 quick S-curve section. That's it. Means, yeah, we're going to be in a lot of trouble this race weekend. This is just not our kind of track. So we're going to quickly get through things. Most likely, as this might be one of the shortest episodes of the season.
Copy, radio check.
So one thing I've decided to go ahead and test during this FP1 session is not our reserve driver. We'll worry about that next year. Jack Aitken is definitely not going to be re-signed, and we are just waiting to get Jack doing a contract, you know, right at the end of the season here. But as they're going, I'm going to go ahead and test turning the engine down, turning the pace down, driving less hard. I never push, which absolutely helps with the engine wear. But turning it down has an obvious benefit of saving the engine yet further. However, what I fear, as Norris has crashed, what I fear is by turning it down, feedback's going to be slower. Because I have noticed and this is what I'm testing. Because what I have noticed is when we have things like virtual safety cars and our pace slows, feedback from the crew chiefs and that communication piece to understand the car more slows down drastically. Now, Pourchaire, his crew chief is better than Albin's at feedback. So Pourchaire is always ready first. Now, pace-wise, Pourchaire is second and a half off Albin right now. Second and a half. They're turning the engine down and the aggressiveness on the tires, which does make them last longer. That could be a good thing. But I fear that, you know, the feedback is going to be that much slower. At the moment, though, he is ahead. He's at his typical state, so actually maybe it is worth it to turn it down. That was what I feared. That's why I haven't been turning it down thus far. But we'll test during this session and see if this continually still favors Pourchaire. If Albin is finishing ahead of time, then we have our answer. But if Pourchaire still finishes first, then all along I should have been doing this, and my fears were not grounded in reality. First session definitely has so far felt like Pourchaire still has the advantage. The gap on when they tend to finish up, that 1 to 2 laps later, the first time out, has remained true here. So by the end of FP1, the gap between them is usually about 2 comments. Sometimes 2.5 comments. I mean, it's pushing towards 3. This time, it's less than 1 ahead. So it does look like it does slow your feedback just a bit. The harder you push, the faster you're going to learn about the car. So time is a factor for this one, and we struggled to get that maximum setup as is because of the weakness of our staff. So choosing which shortcoming to deal with is tricky. Do we choose to push and get the setup, get the most out of the car, and take more penalties as we have more engine wear, more gearbox wear? Or do we back off and save those and, you know, don't face penalties throughout the season and have better grid positions from time to time, but ultimately have weaker setups? Pourchaire has a tendency to find his setup a little bit better than Albin does, and that's because over the course of 3 practice sessions, that pace at getting the feedback isn't significantly better, but it's better enough that over the course of 3 sessions, it does add up to 1 more feedback loop. So as we complete that loop again and again and again, 1 extra time every weekend for our car 1 driver, whether that was Latifi or now Pourchaire, they're getting that extra benefit. And we've had a tendency to more consistently get the setup into that 96 plus range in car 1 than we have for car 2. We've had at least 2 or 3 race weekends this season where we only got to, 90 plus in that second car. And ultimately it came down to having that 1 fewer run, one less run through practice to nail that down. And, most people playing are, playing with a Red Bull or a Ferrari or a Mercedes where they have a strong team and they have that strong crew chief who's going to give that feedback much faster than we get it. And that's why it's so easy with a big team to get that 100% setup or close to it every race weekend. 5 penalties upcoming for this one. Ocon, Tsunoda, Guan Yu Zhou, all impacted. You figure Perez and Hamilton will easily make their way through the field. But those 3, it could put them behind us. But we're off the pace. Albin, who didn't have that slower, his best time was on a medium, but it was still a few tenths off from both of the Aston Martins, who, this race weekend anyway, are very close to Mick Schumacher, not that far off from the McLarens. So, yeah, there's a tiny chance, but I think at 8 tenths off of the midfield, I think that's a little too much for us. So I've learned that, you know, slowing things down, taking it easy on the engine obviously is good, but it is definitely slowing down our feedback loop. But the fantastic news here is that Albin has still nailed down an optimal setup today. We got it just right just now. Corsair has just recently started his next go. It is easily slowing us down by at least a second from where we could be, but that doesn't concern me. It's practice. Times really don't matter here. We lucked out on Albin this time, but I do feel like over the course of a weekend, taking it easy, sitting back a little bit, not pushing as hard, is costing us probably close to a session. Especially on those times where we're squeezing one in FP3, getting that one more go. We're not going to get that anymore if we continually back off. And for the rest of the season, if we're going to make this engine work, we're probably going to have to push on like that. For Albin, now it's just a matter of track acclimatization. He's at 78%, so we'll let him run and then come in and just, you know, bring that up. Final minutes, final session, and Corsair still doesn't have his setup locked in. We got him to 94% on that last run. This will either, you know, do it or not, and we would know which piece was off if we had to do one more, but we're not going to get the feedback in time. There's only 2 minutes left in the session, so we'll carry over into qualifying, and we're going to have to guess that it's okay. Okay, so we're into Q1, and it looks like Russell's going to get in our way here, so let's hope it doesn't impact our time too badly. I think Corsair got passed in a good place. No, he did not. He lost over a second. And then Russell ended up losing time on his as well, and usually that goes back and forth. I think I'm going to give Corsair one more run out, just as a result, but on the same tires. But otherwise, this might be it, because I am trying to conserve things for the end of the season so we don't have to take any additional penalties and don't have to spend, you know, millions on anything else. I do think we are ultimately off the pace here. You know, bottom line, we are ahead of Stroll with Albin, so I don't know, maybe. Through the stadium. I love this stadium section, by the way, here in Mexico. So it's a baseball stadium. It's a former baseball stadium that they've taken the side out, and it cuts through, and then there's some big fairground or convention center kind of right off of where that is. So it's still used. Anyway, session has ended, but we are well into our lap. Nobody's going to get in our way, so we're good to go on that part. And we currently stand in P16 and P18 as Stroll has not improved his time. So Albin will already have him beat. Corsair has a chance to have him beat. Corsair is definitely going to need to improve his time. Vettel and Magnussen as well, all really low on their times. Norris has improved his. That's going to be hard to catch up to. Alonso has improved his. So we're still waiting on Schumacher, Magnussen. Vettel goes clear of Corsair. So Corsair has work to do to beat both of the Aston Martins, but Albin is ahead of both of them, so he's good on that. Albin improves his time. Right now he's P15. Tell Magnussen went clear. Tell Magnussen went clear. Corsair only improving slightly as well, so Corsair really not putting in a very great time on this one. It might be those reactions in the long straights. If you're just a little bit off coming out of the corner, getting on the gas at the right time, the longer the straight is, the more that's going to have an impact. And with 3 lengthy straights, I think that's why Corsair is so far off of Albin's time this race weekend. We don't quite escape Q1. That would have been our first ever time doing it on merit. We've done it with some luck. We've done it from mistakes from others. And obviously with wet weather, we've really, really benefited well on wet weather in qualifying here. Dry, standard circumstances, everybody got their laps in. Nobody was impacted negatively by anything. And Albin, that close to escaping Q1. 16th, 20th.
The time has come for these drivers to fight it out wheel to wheel. Race day has arrived.
Qualifying went well for Williams, as attested by their strong position on the grid. Now it's all about finding that edge for the race itself. Haas gave a solid performance in qualifying, and they'll be happy enough with their grid position here. Let's see if they can make it work for them. And the sun is shining bright here today. This is perfect weather for teams and drivers alike to show us what they're capable of.
And there are sure to be some dizzying strategies used here today, here in the Mexican Heights. The question is, though, who's going to be the one to climb to the top?
5 cars with big grid penalties. It looks like they all went straight to the back of the grid because Porsche, who should be starting from the back, starting in P15, and Albon all the way up in P12. Good starting positions, but a track that doesn't necessarily suit us. I still don't think we're going to be in contention for points, as those 5 behind us, at least 2 of them should be coming through, and I don't see us really moving up the grid at all, but you know, we could get lucky. We've had, let's say, a bit of bad luck recently. Now, of course, drivers taking themselves out, spinning, locking up, hitting the wall, that's on them. Part of that's on us, right? Latifi may have had terrible pace, but he wasn't crashing. Porsche is. Albon might not be as consistent, hence the thing. But you got to be quick to even factor into things, and that's something we do have with these two. They are quicker. They're just having other issues, and not every race is going to result in them spinning out or crashing. In fact, practice, we had 1 lockup, and overall the whole grid there was, I think, 1 crash in all 3 practice sessions. So it's been pretty clean. Let's see if that means this race is going to be clean as well, in which case we could factor in and maybe be a little closer to points. One downside, though, to what we did was that conserve the engine mode that we ran in practice led to one less feedback loop for us on Porsche, and the last one went from 94% down to 92%. So we changed 3 settings, and at least one of those went the wrong way. Maybe 2 of them, I would have imagined, from the 2% drop. So 2 went the wrong way, 1 went the right way, as we only had so much feedback, and so we didn't get to the 95, 96 plus range we were looking for. So that part, a little bit unfortunate, but we'll get on with the race either way. The 92 to 94% is no difference. So, I mean, at least there's that.
We have beautiful blue skies overhead as the drivers line up on the grid. Here we have Alexander Albon. They're in the back half of the pack, so they'll need to work hard if they want a podium finish. And looking at the second Williams car, they're starting in the bottom half of the grid today, so there's a lot of cars between them and the podium. The teams are ready to go. What will happen next? We're about to find out at the Mexican Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
All right, race underway. DRS could be really helpful here, as you get it on all 3 straights with 3 DRS detection zones. So we do have that going for us at least. But Albon already down to P13 here off the start, as Vettel has gotten past Porsche. Porsche spun. Porsche has spun. Wow. I wasn't even pushing hard with him compared to, what you normally do on the start. I was trying to go conservative, but Porsche has spun here on turn number 1. Just lost it on his own, no contact. Already to the back. We should be able to easily close back up in to the back end, and yes, we have done that at least. But let's go ahead and settle in if we're already running last. Save your tires, save your aggressiveness for later. Actually, we want aggressive kind of throughout. That's the intention on how we're going to run this. So just run aggressive, but conserve these guys already. We don't need the overtake on if we're already close in. But we'll now focus on Albon. Porsche from P20. with our pace today means I don't think Pourchaire's got any chance at points. You know, unless a bunch of cars DNF. Otherwise, he's just going to be fighting to not be last place at the end of this thing. Stroll and Vettel in 14 and 16. I think are Pourchaire's only realistic targets. For Albon, though, we've got a near 1 second gap to Schumacher. Let's hope that that does open up as we keep pressure on Magnussen ahead of us. Just a 1/10 of a second behind here. Still going aggressive for the time being, but we will have to, you know, back off a little bit here at some stage. Oh, we might have him, we might have him. Overtake back on, through the stadium. Come on, final turn, final turn.
Who's DRS?
And we're falling further back. And that's the pass for Schumacher. He hasn't completed the move yet, but we're going to back off and probably let him go. This is where we're faster, though. And that's fast enough to pull back ahead. But it's only going to be a matter of time with the...
Williams.
Meanwhile, at the front, Bottas is just a 1/10 of a second off the race lead behind Charles Leclerc. Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton are your top 6. So Perez, the only one out of position there. And Bottas has gone into the race lead, and we have a crash. Albon has gone back around Perez, but what has happened? I clicked it too late, but Vettel has crashed into the Stroll. That's good for our race chances, at least against those two, as one's carrying a penalty and the other one's been crashed into, so there's bound to be damage. Probably going to see one of them pit as well, so Pourchaire actually could still come out ahead. Somebody has retired Stroll and Guan Yu Zhou and Vettel. Oh, now I'm really curious to see what happened there. 2 cars out of the race and Vettel carrying a penalty. So yeah, Pourchaire's probably not even going to lose a position here. All right, and we are out in the same position we went in on. So no loss there, and we have already made our stop, our necessary stop for the day. We'll just... All right, so risky strategy for Pourchaire. We don't know if it's going to make it the distance. But either way, we've already done our required pit stop, and even if we do pit later and put on mediums or softs, there was literally no loss because we were in the same position we were in, so it's worth it. It's worth it. If we can go the distance, we will. Just three cars running softs. Norris, Schumacher, and Tsunoda, they're all going to have to pit much sooner. So Albon just behind those guys. That's part of the reason why they were so much faster than he was. Oh, big crash. Big crash right in front of us there. That looked like a Mercedes. Was it, though?
Safety car, safety car.
Wow, so 2 crashes almost back-to-back here as we had really only just gone green.
Yes.
And that is Tsunoda out of the race. So that's 3 cars out of the race already as we resume here on lap 16. Albon still has yet to make his stop. We now have 4 cars that have already made their mandatory pit stop. Pourchaire, Vettel, Norris, and Schumacher. Tsunoda was the other one who was on the soft. So that's 2 guys who were on the soft compound that have now switched to the hard. That's 4 guys I don't know if they can go the distance. However, that one-stop strategy for the soft to hard, they just did what they needed to do there. And under the safety car conditions, we might have given ourselves enough to just about make it to the end on this one. So it's still possible. But we very quickly need to go to standard here to make these last. You can see we're already in a better condition than we could otherwise be in. But back with Albin in P12, we are positioned well. Let's go ahead and just go aggressive though, and we'll push on otherwise. And we do not need to be on overtake. Positionally, we want to just stay here, stay firm. The longer we can hold off Perez, the better. But that's really not my concern. As we get a look to the inside, let's go ahead and go to the overtake. Can we make the pass? We're on the outside. Yes. He's going to probably block us off. No, we stay side by side, and we're going to get him to the inside here. And we are ahead of Magnussen into P11.
Nice work.
Get that overtake on at least through the straight here, as we do not have the speed advantage, nor do we have DRS here, so it's going to be really hard to continually hold him off. For now, we do. The overtake really helping with that. And he does not tuck in, though. He's side by side with us. We're going to have to continue to push on that little bit longer if we're going to beat him. Let's go attack. There you go. I think we've got him. I think we've got him. Yes, he tucks in. He tucks in. Let's go neutral first. We'll back off on the tires later. And that is Ricciardo ahead. Norris, Schumacher, Vettel, Porsche all having pits. That puts Norris behind us. Go ahead and back off to the aggressive. And Magnussen's still ahead of Perez, so that gave us a little buffer on the Red Bull. Not far off from the points at the moment, but again, there's at least 2 cars behind us. At least one, Norris for sure, that is already pit and is close behind, and we will have to pit with a cyclist behind him. And you never know about Porsche, for that matter. Porsche could be himself in a good position. Bottas still leads this race, by the way, and Verstappen has moved up to P2. Perez, who got past Magnussen, is making a move, double pass for Perez as we went back and forth, and Perez is up into P10. Albin ahead of Ricciardo, though.
Gain a position.
Norris has overtaken Porsche. So that's Porsche down to P16. Vettel went around at some point as well. Yellow flag, sector 1. Looks like somebody ran wide. It's Alonso who spun here in turn 5.
Now watch this. Here's Alonso's car.
Oh,
what a spin!
Right in front of Ocon. Ocon has to come to a screeching halt to not hit him. And here comes the first round of pit stops for those on the medium compound. Albin's at 63%. There is no way we are pitting anytime soon with him. He's going to stay out a long time yet. And there is Alonso and Ocon now just ahead of us within a second. So we should be getting DRS on them here shortly. They recovered awfully quick from their spin, but there's a big gap ahead of them, which I think they were much closer to that a moment ago. So current race situation, you have a front 5 that have pulled away a bit, and then you have Bottas down to P3, by the way, and then you have Ocon, Alonso, and Albin with Ricciardo in now a train that has formed here. Norris leads this train with Vettel, Porsche, Schumacher behind, and then little gaps to Sainz, Russell, Perez, Magnussen, who all just pit.
Okay, we want to increase lift and coast. Copy.
Sector 3, yellow flag. Crash. It's Porsche. Porsche has crashed, and Vettel is out of this race. So, who did it? Vettel was behind. Was he not? No. I think it might have been our mistake for a change. It was.
And
Pourchaire
that's a big
locks up,
smash.
takes out
They'll have
himself
felt
and
that.
Vettel. Now, thinking about it, what sort of gap do we have to these cars behind us? How much can we gain if we pit now? And we're in. Too late to back out now. We've committed. Nobody else is pitting. Of course, Pourchaire is going to be coming in as well. But we're long gone. Perez is ahead of us, but we're well ahead of Magnussen.
You've got any
And
pace
they are
left,
already
you'll
back
be
up
good
to
to roll.
speed. They are already back up to
Okay.
speed, so Pourchaire never quite caught up. Now, we've already beaten the Aston Martins as both are out of the race, so for that part, we're definitely not finishing it back today no matter what happens the rest of the way. They're not going to fall off the cliff. They're not going to fall off the cliff. But somewhere between standard and aggressive, I think we're going to be okay for the entirety of this race. Look at that. Pit lap 28. Second lap, and all these guys go into the pits. And look how far ahead we're going to be of them. And there's the competitors who all just pit, starting with Hamilton. Well behind. Well behind. I mean, we're looking at 13 seconds to the back of the grid. Mick Schumacher into the race lead. But again, a lot of this comes down to pits. And now everybody has pit once. Pourchaire, the only one who has pit twice. Of course, we already know the reason for that. And he will have a third. But that's everyone on the hards except for Pourchaire. And we run P6.
Just focus on the
Magnussen right next to Albon here.
And
Did
yes,
they
that's
touch?
where they spin out.
Looks like they might have touched. Magnussen spins out. Let's hope there's no penalty for Albon.
That's going to be
Race resumes with us running in P6 and P8 as we approach the halfway point of this race.
Red Bull
Sainz,
moved up.
who has moved out front. Verstappen has caught Pourchaire, by the way, so that group that was about 8 seconds behind him over the course of, 10 laps or so, they made up that ground. So Pourchaire is going to go backwards. That means they do have a pretty significant pace advantage if they've caught him that quickly. You better believe that Albon is going to be up next. But it's just Verstappen and Leclerc right now. So if we bump down 2 positions, we're looking at P8, P10 once those two have gone through. If the others don't have
Also
enough
on
of a pace
DRS.
advantage, we may yet be able to remain in the points today. Leclerc has moved ahead of Pourchaire, and Alonso has gotten around Albon finally. Albon now is going to have to continue on behind Alonso, but that's okay. The DRS advantage is good. Albon with DRS immediately goes back and forth with with Alonso, so they're battling for position. But Verstappen and Leclerc have both caught
Alpine
up
just
and
advanced.
start to make their moves as Albon drops to P8 now. Norris to the back of that train. That's who we're going to be racing with. And we have a yellow
And that's the lockup.
Schumacher. No, Alonso with the lockup. Alonso has gone behind us. So Albon back up into P8. Alonso comes out behind in P9. And Bottas has passed Pourchaire. Remember, he was in the lead at one point in this
Looks
race.
like
So
that
he
was
has
a position
really
gain
good pace
for
on this
Alfa
track.
Romeo.
And Pourchaire out of the points. And can we get Schumacher here? We've got him to the inside, now to the outside. It's going to be the outside again here for 5. It'll become the inside, and this is our faster sector, but we've got to still be side by side, and we're only just... You can definitely see we have that slight advantage through there, and eventually we complete the move just before we enter the stadium section. So we are up to P7, but we've lost Norris through that battling. So Norris has pulled away, and Alonso has closed up. And we're side by side with Norris and get DRS, complete the move, and we're up into P6. But in a long train here, it's going to be a bit problematic. Top 5 are definitely running away with this thing. Hamilton's probably not going to get back into this. And Sainz and Russell are all pitting. So we do have some 2 stoppers today. Has moved past Albon, puts me back to 2nd in the train. But meanwhile, it's Schumacher, then Bottas, then Alonso, then Gasly, and Hamilton, and Ocon, all in one train. So Norris leading a train that goes all the way down to P13. So P6 through P13, all bunched together. As long as we can remain, I'd say, 2nd position, we're in great shape as we go up beside Norris, and that's kind of the problem. The first car is the sitting duck. The second car, if you can't complete a pass, tucking back in can very much make you vulnerable, and you can easily drop a couple positions. So I'm not a fan of getting this close up on Norris, but we go back past and back into the lead. No, Norris again side by side. We block him off coming out of the final turn.
There's an overtake from Williams.
Get right back on top. 15 laps to go. 52% on the tire wear. It's a lot for 15 laps. Let's check. Yellow flag, sector 1. I hope we can make the one-stopper work. Big lockup, big runoff, and we're going to wait to the back. That's not pushing, and we stopped pushing a long time ago. So
now we see the Williams here.
It's been almost a full lap. This big lockup is completely Albon's own doing. The engine was turned up a bit, but there was no push anywhere otherwise, and he's been doing that for many, many laps.
What a shame.
Albon down to P13 because it goes all the way to the back of the train and behind Hamilton, who himself made a mistake, and now down to 48%. That lockup definitely costing us some tire wear, and Porsche is going to have to pit soon, but our hope of finishing in the points just ran out with another driver mistake. We have had a driver mistake by each driver in each of the last, what, 4 races now? 5 races? Boy, these guys are so inconsistent. And Albon was doing fine at the beginning of the season, not making mistakes. I don't know what's going on with him now that the car is a little more competitive. Two and a half second stop for Porsche, in and out pretty quickly, but it's still down to last place. So he is going to be last place. He can drive. He can attack from here to the finish, though, and he can also push. But what's that going to do? What's his gap like? Is it even worth it? We are 4 seconds behind Magnussen, nowhere near anybody else. So you know what? We're just going to drive. Just drive to the finish. Save the engine. No point pushing for Porsche. He's going to finish P16. Albon, meanwhile, though, running P13. It's not quite over yet, but he's completely lost that train. He's 5 seconds behind Hamilton, just a couple seconds ahead of Ricciardo, out of the points. So I think same sort of deal. We want to just make sure we get to the end now. Ricciardo has caught Albon, but I'm kind of under the impression that he's going to beat us. We use the ERS while we're trying to, not conserve, but we're trying to, not push to save the engine, to save the tires, and Ricciardo has gone by. So now that that's happened, we'll go ahead and back off,
McLaren gain a
conserving
position.
both. So Ricciardo's passed P14, P16. Now, I did not think we were going to feature in the points today, so there's that. I did not expect that we would be there. Figured we... The tires were going to be a bit of an issue, so there was a good chance he was going to go backwards a little bit. But he, that lockup hurt the tires quite a bit as well, so how much more would he have had to have lifted to make it to the end? I don't know, but Perez leads from Sainz. Verstappen last spot on the podium right now. Leclerc is 4th, and Russell alone in 5th. And Bottas, the Alfa Romeo, so fast. All season long, really. Porsche finishes P16, and Albon will be the last to cross the line in P14.
That's the flag.
Remained on the lead lap, but not by much. 15th and 16th for the lap cars. All those safety cars, VSCs today, so many of them, really helped keep the field bunched together, and we had that huge train right at the front. But Albon disappointing mistake from him. The team, of course, is happy because we didn't finish 10th as a constructor, and overall those positions look good, but that's down to DNFs and not because of performance-wise should have been in the points yet again, and still no points on this one. 2 races left. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.